It's been a while since I've been with you. I've just had a couple of extra busy weeks, but I'm glad to be with you again today. And I'm starting a new series called The A-Team. And my first A is going to be ambition. I'm not sure if you ever watched The A-Team, that action show from back in the 80s, but that's kind of a spin-off from that. And I have 9 members on my A-Team, and I'm going to read them to you right now. They are ambition, attention, affection, action, availability, adoration, alignment, allegiance, and finishing up with adventure. What does the Bible say about ambition? When I did a web search, what comes up, just pops up on the screen. I saw 4 questions, and I'll read them to you here. One was, what does the Bible say about not having motivation? What is God's definition of success? What does conceit mean in the Bible? And where does selfish ambition exist? Interesting. And out of those 4 questions, I picked out 4 words: motivation, success, conceit, and selfish. Now, automatically when we think of conceit and selfish, that's a negative. But when we think of motivation and success, we generally think of that as positive. Of course, I know some of the left-thinking people think of motivation and success as kind of patriarchy and privilege and all that, and something that other people can't attain to. But I don't believe that. I believe that motivation and success should be something that we present to everyone, and that everyone from any race, any background should be able to have some measure of that when they give their life to the Lord and follow Him. Some people automatically think of, like I just said about the left people, they think about motivation and success as evil capitalist words. In fact, if you see here, I brought up a website that had some graphics. I didn't order them. You can see right there, there's the prices and everything. Where ambition ends, happiness begins. So you see automatically whoever came up with that graphic is taking a negative spin on ambition. And another one is that pits career and family. It's a crossroads where one direction is family and one direction is career. And so there are people that pit career and family against one another. And we want to talk about that today, because I don't think you need to do that. I think when everything is ordered from the Lord the way it should be, that you can live in unison, everything taking its proper place. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to ask 3 questions. Is it okay to be ambitious? What am I willing to sacrifice for my ambition? And what is life like when God has my ambition? And we'll be right back with that. Welcome to Know and Grow. You can't live what you don't know. I'm Bonnie Wiley, wife, mother, follower of Jesus, called to ministry, doing what I love most. So let's start with our first question. Is it okay to be ambitious? We're going to look first at the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and there answer is an ardent, or their definition is an ardent desire for rank, fame, or power. Now, that's their first definition. There's two more, but when people hear that, they automatically think, okay, oh, well, those are wrong. Desire for rank, desire for fame, or desire for power are just automatically off limits for the good Christian. But I think sometimes people virtue signal on those. Or it's something that they were brought up thinking a certain way, that those things are evil, those things are wrong. So either they're virtue signaling, hey, I'm higher than that, I don't think about those things. Or they've just been brought up to think that anything like that is wrong. And, did you ever see a general or a soldier go off to battle thinking that power didn't matter? Well, yeah, power does matter. If you're going off into battle, power over your enemy, winning, triumphing, and not losing is important. So to say that power has no place in the Christian life is just kind of ridiculous. And or somebody who loved the military, maybe since a little kid, they just loved the military, and they finally got in, and they want to be lifers. And do you think that they don't think about rank and wanting to grow in that love of theirs? Well, there's nothing wrong with that if they want to rise in the ranks of that. Or somebody who loves medicine and wants to not be an orderly, they want to be a surgeon. Not that there's anything wrong with being an orderly if that's what God called you to, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to rise in the rank. And even fame can have its proper place. Sometimes you have a passion that's so strong, and you feel like what's on your heart is something that's necessary, that's going to help others. And so it's important for you to grow in that. And with that growth and with that effectiveness, with that influence, will often come fame. And so it's okay. If fame comes, then it comes. It's like, if you want to be famous for doing something good for this world or for God. So I just think that we shouldn't downplay that particular definition. Let's go on to another definition. It is a desire to achieve a particular end. That kind of goes along with what we just said, but you have something in mind. You're a person, a woman on. Never stop a woman on a mission. Never stop a woman on a mission. When you're on a mission, you have something you want to accomplish, and you want to just you want that outcome to be what you want it to be. So you have an ambition towards that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And then a desire for action or exertion. Instead of being tired and lagging, it's good when you can feel ambitious, even physically to feel ambitious. Now let's ask a spiritual question. Is ambition part of our fleshly nature? Something to be subdued, something that needs to be crucified? Is it worldly, carnal, a sin to be avoided or repented of? In Galatians 5:17, we learn that the flesh lusts against the spirit. So maybe we think that, okay, maybe that's just my lust. Maybe I'm lusting for this ambition. In Philippians 1, we see that some actually do preach Christ out of envy, strife, and selfish ambition. So definitely ambition can be used wrongly. So is it something to be avoided at all costs, or could it be something that God placed in humankind at creation? We bear the stamp of. We have his image, we bear his stamp. And could it be that he places things in us? In Jeremiah 1:5, I'm going to read this to you. It says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as a prophet to the nations. So there are some things that God has placed down deep inside of us, things that maybe we haven't even discovered yet, or that we've ignored or been afraid to bring out and use. And that is going to be an ambition. It's going to be a calling, and you're going to be ambitious towards it. You should be. That is good. I found a really good picture that talks about ambition being an ally or an enemy, and I want you to see this. It's really good. And I was going to use a different system today. That's where all my technical difficulty came in. And the system I was going to use, I was going to be able to automatically pull up the picture and automatically bring in the things I wanted to bring in to show you. And that system isn't working for me. So, but I will put it up so you can read it. While I'm babbling on, you'll be reading it. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, and here is just a tidbit. Sometimes our first reaction to something, when it's negative, stop and think about this. Sometimes it's because we ourselves have an issue with that particular topic that comes up. Titus 1:15 says, "To the pure, all things are pure." And in other words, if you already have purity in your heart about that particular issue, you don't have an issue with it. It's not something that you fight with, or maybe you used to, but you got under control. Then you don't automatically have negative feelings about that. I hope I'm making myself clear. Sometimes if something really bothers you about somebody else, like they're being ambitious maybe, it's because secretly you might have that same issue. That's what I'm trying to say. So think about that. Sometimes what we struggle with is because we have that struggle ourselves. So is ambition good or bad? We could cover so many areas. We could talk about zeal, success, slothfulness, selfishness, conceit. It all depends on the person. It depends on where your heart is, what God's called you to do, how you're placing that underneath underneath God's leading and His directing. And if you're ambitious about something and you're really trying to live for the Lord, He's the most important thing to you. His kingdom and His righteousness are very important to you. Then it's quite likely that what you're ambitious about is part of His will for you. And if you're not sure, just ask Him, because He when we call on Him, He answers us. So if you're not sure, bring it before Him. But whatever you do, I'm just saying, don't miss what God has for you because you think ambition is wrong, or because you are afraid, or because you are too comfortable to make the necessary effort. I just don't want you to miss what God has for you. Part of this ministry of mine is just that I want everyone that hears me to be close to the Lord, and for everything that He had planned for you to be brought forth and to blossom, and for you to live a full, happy life serving the Lord. So we see that on the one hand, we can have selfish ambitions, and on the other hand, it might not be. If you are feeling dissatisfied or discontent, again, that was, I think that was back in that picture, that graphic, and I don't have it in front of me here. But if you're feeling dissatisfied or uncontent, that could be a sign that wherever your ambitions are leading you, you might be doing it in yourself. It might not be from the Lord. So our second question is, our first one was, is it okay to be ambitious? But next is, what am I willing to sacrifice for my ambition? It seems like the older generation is very, very comfortable with sacrifice. It was just part of everything they did. They just did it and didn't think anything of it. They just thought, I have to work hard, I have to sacrifice, I might have to give up this to get this. And they didn't even maybe think twice about it. It was just it was just ingrown in us. But the younger generation has, you know how the pendulum swings. Sometimes things can be even overdone on this side, and then the pendulum swings and things can be overdone on this side. And I think lots of times the younger generation, it could be, not all of them of course, or people who think with the left-leaning politics, they have a tendency to have more of a negative view of ambition. Like I said earlier, they think it's an evil capitalist idea. So, and they aren't as willing to sacrifice. They think they're entitled to things more than we ever thought in our older generation. And I'm not saying this like a blanket statement, like they're all that way. It's just what we've seen by they've gone off to school, they've gone off to higher education, and they've been fed this by culture, by teachers, by media, by the arts and entertainment, by the movies they watch. So don't be too hard on them. If anything, we need to just try to bless them and show them the truth so they don't fall into that. So the middle age, another thing I want to bring out about middle-aged people like my age, and especially baby boomers, I would say. What happened in the 80s and the 90s was those were 2 decades where psychology took the earth by storm, and things really changed. Everything had a psychological reason. Sometimes we talked away sin because we could say this was something psychological, and we gave it a psychological name or a medical name, and we didn't deal with the sin. And there are issues that rise out of our bodies, rise out of our hormones. Definitely there are. But I think that's another one of those pendulum things where it was way over here, and now people took it way over here in the 80s and 90s, and psychology just, I really think, hurt a lot of things and helped in some ways. But 2 of the things we want to look at from especially my generation, who went through that in the 80s and 90s, and the younger generation, of course, is just still living with that because that's still there. That hasn't gone away. I want to say that we owe a debt of gratitude to the older generation who paved the way for everything we have now, and people younger than me. Everything we have, the older generation paved the way for, and we need to really thank them. And I do want to say something about the younger generation. There is a phenomenon happening now that is hard on the young people. There was a time, when a man could go off to work, he could get a good enough paycheck to have a modest home, and if the wife wanted to be home, she didn't have to be home, but if she wanted to, she could stay home with the children. Now, they lived modestly, but the pensions were better back then. And now our young people don't have that as much. The jobs aren't offering the good pensions. Some of you people older than me are living on amazing pensions that our young people don't have offered to them. So we need to concede on some points, and kind of sometimes you just have to take and see where they're coming from, and not just be hard-nosed about everything. So also, on the other hand, I feel a lot of people have developed a bad attitude. You know, the whole entitlement thing, wanting something now and not waiting for it. You know, they use the credit card instead of waiting for something. They want the employer to plan the employer's life around the employee, just do everything according to their whims. And we're not going to talk about that here, but I just wanted to present both sides. Some of the things they are facing that are harder, things are more shaky than they were for this other generation that was more stable. But they also have to deal with their attitudes of entitlement and their hatred for America and all that garbage, which we don't have time to talk about today. So I saw two things that happened with the 80s and the 90s. One was that the challenge that you were neglecting your child by working. So there was work pitted against family. And it got to be where, it used to be, let's just say, it used to be where you just went off to work and you might have to work overtime. Sometimes you might have to work weekends, whatever, but nobody thought anything of it. That was just part of your life. Work was something you did, and it was a godly thing. God instituted work, and you didn't complain about it. You just did it. And if the wife was home and the children were home, that was part of it. But now it's all about the work-family, the work-life balance. And there is something to that. I try to concede on points where, it can be overdone. They can take advantage of you. They can make you work. They can jerk you around. I know that. Okay, I am admitting that. But still, it's like work is just part of your life. Just get used to the idea. You're going to have to go off to work, and that's going to take many hours, and that's just a normal thing, and it's a healthy thing. It's a good thing. People who retire struggle because they don't have that anymore, because they don't have that purpose and don't feel needed. So, and the other thing was that the Bible puts a very high, I just said that a little bit ago, the Bible puts a high value on work and working for a living, and also working with all your might, okay? So, and also working so that others don't have to support you. And I have this, again, I don't have those clips I wanted to put up. I'll add them later, but I wanted to have them up so I could actually be talking to you about them, but I don't have them because I'm using a different technology. Anyway, it's what should be coming up now is A Young Man Without Ambition, which I will add, so you'll see it while I'm talking. So here's another tidbit. I've noticed that when a spouse does not complain about the other spouse having to work, they give them the freedom to fulfill their ambition. They give them the freedom to work. They give them the freedom without complaining and being, high maintenance and needy. When they do that, when they're mature enough themselves that they can do that, and they have a good attitude, the children will absorb that. The children will understand work is good, work is purposeful, God instituted work, and it's not something to complain about, but something to appreciate and something to thank the Lord for, and something to do with all your heart. So I just wanted to say that, be careful as a spouse that your attitude is correct. I know when we were in the ministry and when the kids were growing up, John would get called out. A pastor can get called out any time of the day or night, but that was just life. Nothing was thought about it. We didn't complain about it. And the kids didn't take on a complaining attitude either. It's okay. Yep, dad has to go help somebody. So just have the right attitude and give each other as spouses, not just one towards the other, but the other one too, back and forth. Give each other room to follow your ambition and time. Those ambitions might take time. You're going to have to be willing to let each other grow. Roots to grow and wings to fly. You give that to your kids and even to each other as spouses. So I just said, the children should value work. They should see us working hard and valuing the work ethic. In Genesis, did you know that in Genesis, work came before the fall? Sometimes you think, okay, that work came because the fall, and then all the weeds and the struggle, and but Adam and Eve were working before the fall ever happened. And Ruth, if you look in the book of Ruth, did you know that Ruth was in dire straits? She and Naomi went back to Naomi's homeland. There were money issues, but instead of Ruth complaining and despairing and staying home and moaning, Ruth went off to work. And that job that she went off to, did not promise that it was going to meet all their needs. It wasn't promised. She didn't know. But she worked, and God ended up blessing her. She set out to work. I watched a movie a while back where a father left an inheritance to two of his sons, and I think the two sons were estranged. Something had happened where they weren't speaking to one another or whatever. And in the stipulation, it was that they had to take a trip together. And so they went on this road trip. But what struck me, it was an interesting movie, but what struck me was that the wife and the children stayed home. The wife didn't complain. Oh, why do you have to go do that? Are you going to leave me here with the kids? What am I going to do by myself with these kids? Oh. No, it wasn't like that at all. That just really spoke to me. That's how it used to be, and I wish it would be that way again. So I just want to say that, that psychology push in the 80s and 90s, yes, brought some good things, but it also hurt work and ambition and the relationship with work and family, and it did hurt. So I'm trying to say some things that I hope will make you think. If you got caught up with that will make you think, and or maybe just encourage you. The other thing was in the 80s and 90s was that the church was pitted against the family. Church and family were pitted. Like they said family comes before church. And there's nowhere in Scripture that says that family comes before church. If anything, the Scripture does not have that kind of a hierarchy. God is up here, and then everything else underneath God falls into its right place. And it can, when we have the right attitude and aren't like poor me and entitled and victimized or thinking we're victims. Everything can fall in its place. We can rest when we need to. We can work when we need to. Work hard when we need to. And we can go to church and, just the family going to church and being happy about going to church. If you're happy about going to church, it's going to help your children be happy. So don't pit the church against the family. Okay, so we ask, is it okay to be ambitious? And we ask, what am I willing to sacrifice for my ambition? Now, our last question, and this one is going to be brief, is what is life like when God has my ambition? Okay. When God has our ambition, we're going to do whatever it is He's called us to. We're going to do it with all of our strength. Now, we might get tired, and we might need to rest. We might have days where we don't feel like doing some things. That happens. But in general, we're going to just want to be ambitious for the Lord. And we're not going to want to be selfish or conceited in what we do. We'll want our hearts to be right in what we do. And we're going to want to fulfill everything he has for us. I don't want to miss anything the Lord has. I don't want to go ahead of him. I don't want to fall behind him. I don't want to go down a bunny trail that distracts me away from him. I want everything. And I want John to have everything. I want our boys to have everything. I want you all to have everything God has for you. And that's going to take ambition in its right place. So yeah, when we're ambitious under the Lord in its proper place, doing things according to his will, doing his calling and his bidding, we're going to be fulfilled, and we're going to be productive, and we're going to have ambition, and we're going to use it rightly. So in closing, I have one more tidbit, and that's that don't judge your idea of ambition, or don't judge someone else's idea of ambition, because their idea, what they feel God's leading them to, might be different than what you feel God's leading you to. Sometimes ambitious people look at other people who say they're offered a job, what do you call it? When you oh goodness, a job offer that's higher, and it means more responsibility or whatever, but they don't take it. Or they might have to move, and they decide they don't want to move. And you, who are ambitious, you're maybe a type A personality, you look at them and you think, boy, that's lazy. They had their chance to excel. They had their chance to get ahead, and they didn't take it. And you kind of have an irksome attitude about it. But you don't know what God's saying to them. Don't project your personality onto them. It's possible that they missed God's calling, that God did want them to take that higher responsibility. Maybe God wanted them to move away. But it's also very possible that God wanted them right where they are, doing right what they're doing right now, and that is their place. That is their calling. So I just want to say that's my little tidbit there. Don't project your idea of ambition on someone else. So what's coming next in our A-Team? Part 2 is attention. God, you have my ambition. Part 2 is God, you have my attention. That ought to be good. So join me as we continue to know and grow. We can't live what we don't know, and we want to just keep growing up in the Lord. Colossians 1:10b says, all the while you will grow as you learn to know God better and better. And that is what I want for myself and for you. So I hope you enjoyed this, and please comment. Please, even if you're watching after the fact, you're watching, a couple days later or months later, go ahead and still comment, because every comment, every like, that helps the video to go out to more people. So comment, like. If you're watching it on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell. And I'm also on Rumble, and some of those different links will be at the very end. If you stay tuned to the very end, you'll see those links. They're also in the description. So I do want to pray with you before we part, and I'm going to read it. Father, thank you that you placed the capacity for ambition within us. We want to be ambitious in all the ways you want us to be. Help us to guard against complacency, laziness, and lack of ambition, but also help us guard against selfishness and conceit as we pursue our ambitions. We want every single thing you have made available for us. We don't want to fall short in anything you have ordained for us. Help us not to run ahead of you or lag behind. Help everything we do, from resting to hard work, be found under you. Everything in its proper place, working in unison. in proper relation to everything else. Lord, let our ambitions always bring honor and glory to you. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. So I have a couple other things I'm going to put up here at the end. It's the Greatest Danger by Michelangelo, and I would have had that up had I been using the other technology. And I might have one more, but I'll try to have them up here so you can see them, and then I'll go on to the ending with all the links. So until next time, and I'm sorry it's been kind of a crazy day, but thank you for just being part of my crazy day. I love you. Bye-bye.